Philip Whitmore Powers III was a hoped-for, a planned-for baby. His parents, Carol, a newly graduated lawyer, and Phil, a self-employed carpenter, had been married for 8 years before starting their family. Phil had begun to refuse new jobs. He planned to take time out from his business to look after his child in their Boston home. But during the 8th month of a difficult pregnancy, Carol Powers developed polyhydramnios. Amniotic fluid was accumulating in her uterus, suggesting a digestive problem in the baby. The decision was made to deliver by cesarean section 1 month early. He was born at Brigham and Women's Hospital on June 2, 1983, weighing 4 pounds 11 ounces. The snapshots show a long-limbed, bright-eyed, handsome baby. Neurological tests routinely performed within minutes of birth put him well within the range of normal function, but he was whisked away for determination of the full extent of his physical problems. Although his nurses called him Philip, to his parents he was Whit. He was admitted to the Multidisciplinary Intensive Care Unit, Division 86, at Children's Hospital, one of the nation's preeminent pediatric healthcare institutions. The Powers soon learned that Whit had a tracheoesophageal fistula, an opening that allowed gastric juices into the lungs. It was a serious but operative condition similar to the one that had launched Baby Doe into the headlines a year earlier. But X-rays also showed that Whit had only one lung, a discovery that was to be the first in a series of progressively disheartening setbacks to the Powers' hopes for their son. With a single lung, Whit was not a strong candidate for surgery, yet he did eventually undergo the long, difficult operation to correct his fistula. It reappeared, however, and the operation was repeated twice over the next 6 months. There were other complications. In December, Whit began to experience blue spells. He would stop breathing, literally turn blue, and have to be resuscitated. In February, as in the previous summer, a CAT scan revealed that Whit's brain was shrinking rather than growing. His father remembers, "We'd been talking all along. He won't be an athlete, he'll be a scholar." But now he wasn't going to be a scholar either, and there was some ambiguity about the degree of retardation. A year after Whit's death, the Powerses recall their son's struggle and their own pain clearly and calmly. "The loss of a child changes a parent's life forever," says Carol, but within the context of a strong, shared religious faith, she and Phil have been able to make sense of their grief. They remember Whit with sadness, but sometimes now without tears. Even after finding out about their son's mental handicap, the Powerses hoped to take Whit home. Carol says, "You can't discount a child just because he might be retarded." But further tests showed that the baby was losing his hearing and sight. The blue spells continued, and Whit's heart was faltering. Throughout Whit's hospitalization, the Powerses attended regular conferences with their care team, the primary nurse and physician who remain a constant presence throughout any hospitalization at Children's. As Whit's condition worsened, these meetings increased in frequency and intensity. "We would talk about the physical results and also what the future held," Phil says. The staff worried about ever being able to wean him from the respirator. There was brief discussion about moving Whit to a long-term care facility. After several months, the Powerses began to set limits on intrusive procedures. Sitting in her living room, Carol remembers, "At that point, your main role as a parent is to protect him from all that hurts him." It became more and more evident that no procedure could help. And finally, Phil adds, "The subject came up, are we being counterproductive here?" The neurologist who'd looked at the data determined that the cerebral atrophy would eventually kill him. You really have to chase them around and nail them down, to use the word hopeless. The last thing any of them wants to talk about is failing.